It is day 20 of the Karen Read case, and it is Wednesday, May 21st. Yes, we're just off by a day now, which is going to be really confusing until the weekend, and then we will resume. So we are here waiting for the prosecution's next witness, and it seemed that they were going to be calling a witness out of order this morning based on reports from yesterday, because they told the scientific witness that was on the stand from the Trace department of the lab to come back later in the day because they were going to call a witness out of order.
Good morning, jurors. So an issue has come to my attention that is going to make it necessary that I talk to each one of you individually over at Sidebar with counsel. So that process will take a little while. So I'm going to don't speculate as to what I'm going to talk to you about. Please, when you go back to the deliberation room, talk about anything but this case, and I'll see each of you individually. And the process may take the cameras will be shut off, and I'm going to talk to the lawyers about whether we clear the court. So, jurors, I still have a couple of questions for you. Were you able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? And we've discussed the other two questions, but I do need to stress for you that it's very, very important that no one discuss this case. Don't let anyone talk to you about the case. No comments about the case. You've seen how hard the lawyers have worked to pull this case together for you, and everybody's given it so much time. So please, let's make sure that we follow that. That means each other. So,
is there anything about the pattern of that laceration that would suggest that there was a ridge or a line-type edge that caused that wound?
Not necessarily.
And have you seen, in your experience, similar types of lacerations and breaks caused by falling on hard ground?
Yes, you can see that both in the occipital region. You can see it if patients fall on the forehead. The skin tears, they're still bridging, and then they get bruises.
Right.
Some of your work was in Minnesota?
Correct.
Was it a colder part of Minnesota?
Right. Very cold part of Minnesota. It's Minneapolis.
I'm sorry.
He's like, it's
Did
Minneapolis.
You often see these type of injuries there?
Yes. I mean, we took care of a trauma center, Hennepin County. Very frequently, patients that are drunk fall down on ice sidewalks.
Right.
And could develop, lacerations in their head, epidurals, which are blood clots above the dura, because they fracture a bone in the temporal area and they can get a bleed from a fractured artery. And it happens when people are shoveling snow and have a heart attack and fall backwards. So there are various ways that people fall
backwards,
resulting in head injuries and lacerations to their forehead or to different areas of their head.
Can somebody suffer this type of injury simply by falling backwards?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what he just said.
You had taken us through the process
I don't think that's
of falling backwards.
I don't know if that's the answer Brennan wants, but that's the truth. Can someone suffer this injury from falling backwards? And this expert just said, if someone has a heart attack shoveling snow and falls over backwards, this can happen. If someone is drunk and slips and falls over backwards, this can happen. If someone falls over backwards, for whatever cause, this can happen. There are a lot of things that can cause someone to fall over backwards. It's the job of the Commonwealth to prove what caused John O'Keefe to fall over backwards. But I don't disagree with the head injuries. The ME agreed about the falling over backwards, that was a common presentation of that head injury.
Traumatic head injuries, you would not die immediately. It's a process. And it's a process of a combination of things. Brain swelling, which takes a while to develop. Decreased blood flow to your brain because you're getting swelling.
Yes, my notes say don't teach people to crime better. That's what my notes say.
Death of the brainstem that controls your heart and your breathing. And so this is why there is a whole big issue about brain death. When is someone brain dead? Because it's not instant and it can take a long time to be conceived. in these injuries that are very severe that we took care of, there was a high mortality rate. In the linear skull fractures, it was about 67%. But it took time for them to die. It could take days to weeks to months. And also, these people got to shock trauma, so it was a while, whether it was hours, before they were even starting to be taken care of, and yet they weren't dead yet. That's why I don't think it was immediate.
So this morning started out with court being delayed, the attorneys coming in immediately, the court calling them to sidebar. After the court called the lawyers to sidebar, the court went on the record briefly to say that there was an issue and the court needed to talk to each of the jurors individually. I am not speculating on why that is, because eventually the sidebars will be unsealed and we'll find out. We got some hints when the court came back on the record after all 18 of the jurors had been individually inquired of. They removed everyone from the courtroom, media, family, everyone. They sealed the courtroom and spoke to each juror individually. What would that look like? Well, the juror could be in the juror box or in the witness box. The court reporter would be there. The court staff would be there. The attorneys and Karen Read would be there. No one else was present. What did they talk about? We'll find out at a later time. What can we summarize from what the court said when she came back? The court said when she came back, I just need to ask you that one question. Did you do any research? We've already talked about the other two questions. The judge says it the same every single day. So let's go through those same three questions from yesterday's hearing verbatim.
So I have to ask you those same three questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Yes. Everyone's
Refrain from discussing this case with anyone. Number one.
affirmatively. Were you also able to follow my instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case?
Independent research was the only thing she asked about today. She said, I talked about the other two with you already. Discuss it with anyone. Independent research, not the issue.
Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Everyone.
Discuss, see, hear, or read anything about the case. Those are the two areas that were discussed at sidebar, because when the court came back to court today, she said, we've already talked about the other two. So we have some context about the issue. All 18 jurors are back in court. And what I have seen reported by numerous sites is that the jurors have moved around. So where the jurors are now sitting has changed. So there was a seating arrangement change, and there were some notes made that some of the jurors, and we've seen the court address the jurors about this before, some of the jurors seemed to be chatting with each other when there were breaks in sidebars. The court gave them an admonishment that it can be disruptive to other jurors. And she said, the lawyers have worked very hard to put this before you. What frustrates me is what the court did not say is, Karen Read deserves your attention in this matter. John O'Keefe deserves your attention in this matter. The lawyers are doing a job, right? The lawyers deserve your attention, they do, but the reason the lawyers deserve your attention is because John O'Keefe and Karen Read deserve your attention, and this case deserves your attention. And so if the jurors are saying things under their breath, you might have a jury that's getting put out with one another. You can't talk about the case until deliberation at all, period. Talking under your breath, making jokes, it's not going to go well, because the bailiff's going to try to shut it down, then the court's going to try to shut it down. Can the jurors talk at lunch? Yeah, they can talk about the weather. They can talk about their families. They can talk about their jobs. They will eventually run out of things to talk about, but it's pleasantries. You cannot talk about the lawyers. You cannot talk about the case. You cannot talk about the shoes the lawyers are wearing or whatever. You can't talk about it. I imagine, because there are still 18 jurors, that it is more likely than not a decorum thing, seeing that some of the jurors moved around. The jurors might be at issue with one another. Have you ever had to do a group assignment with 18 people? That is not easy. So I have empathy for the jury. I have empathy for the lawyers, the judge, the parties, the families, all of it is hard. With all of that, this morning, the jurors came in one by one to go to sidebar with the court. All 18 jurors were back. Their seats were moved around a bit. And then evidence resumed with a witness out of order, which means they were in the middle of another witness from yesterday. They were in the middle of witness 36 yesterday from the state crime lab, the trace analyst who did matching of the drink glass that was found by the leaf blower team originally by Gallagher. So that witness was interrupted and a witness was called out of order, meaning not in the order the Commonwealth would like that witness to be called. And that witness was the neurosurgeon, Dr. Wolf, hungry like the, not W-O-L-F-E. Dr. Wolf's direct examination was about the injuries to the back of John O'Keefe's head and what caused the brain injuries, the type of injury, that the brain injury and the bleeding from the brain injury could cause the bruising and apparent bruising to the eyelids, and that the laceration on the back of the head is consistent with a fall backwards, and talked a lot about the fall backwards. When we got to a brief cross-examination with Attorney Alessi, it was, okay, but you saw that John O'Keefe, the decedent, had lacerations on his face from the coroner's report. Those wouldn't come from that fall backward, correct? So then they talked briefly about, okay, these other injuries that were noted, those didn't come from the fall backward, correct? Correct. Did this witness testify about how that fall backward was caused? No, they don't know. But they said that the fall backward is what caused that on a flat surface, not something around like a bat, not something acute. I think the other thing Brennan said was a hammer. So to move away from, could it have been a different type of injury? And the neurosurgeon testified, we didn't see that concave break to the skull that you would see with a more acute hit like that. So that's what they were talking about. And then we got back into the scientific evidence from witness number 36, continuing from yesterday, from the state crime lab, and going through the physical match analysis of the broken glass and what pieces fit on it, and then going through the microscopic analysis of the pieces of plastic recovered from John O'Keefe's clothing and the pieces of plastic on the taillight housing, and seeing if those are the same type of plastic. So the plastic on John O'Keefe's clothing, it's her opinion, both the clear and red pieces of apparent taillight from John O'Keefe's clothing match in type the plastic from the taillight. So it would have either come from that taillight or something with the similar properties and composition. And that's where we were at when Adam Lally said, I have about 3 minutes left. And the court said, great, we're going to lunch. So now we're on lunch.
And they've worked very hard to get us to this point where we're ahead of schedule so that tomorrow, instead of being a half a day, you have tomorrow off. So you have tomorrow and Friday, a good long weekend. It's very, very important. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't say a word about this case. Don't let anybody say anything to you about this case. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. I believe next week, except for Thursday, are full days every day. Watch your social media use this weekend as well. Have a great long weekend. We'll see you here Tuesday morning, ready to go.
The end of day 20, we saw the witness that had been recalled before lunch, witness 36, Christina Hanley, and the defense brought in a new demonstrative exhibit that is now in evidence that showed what items of evidence that this witness compared, mostly pieces of glass, came from where, and showed what was on the bumper of the SUV, what it matched to, and what it didn't match to. I think it was a very good demonstrative. It made it very clear, very easy to follow, and the defense made the point that two of these things matched from the bumper in 34 Fairview. Those were both picked up by Proctor, but the other things found on the bumper didn't match to any of those exhibits. So the defense has laid the groundwork to start arguing in their closing, look at what was found by who and what it matched and what it didn't. Isn't that interesting? And that is going to go to, and what else did law enforcement not follow up on? because the defense is leaning into that Bowden defense of there were other leads here that weren't followed. And I imagine the argument will be, and gee, I wonder why. So at the end of day 20, it felt like the last couple days have been clunky. And the court said multiple times today to the jury, it is very important you do not talk to anyone. Today was a very interesting day in court. I think we learned a lot about what's going on with this jury. And we heard the court say to the jury at the end of the day, we know you don't like it when we're at sidebar. I wonder how that has come up. But I would imagine a juror or jurors mention something to a bailiff. Some courts, when they need to work on something, tell the jurors, we need to work on something in court. We're going to have you go back to the jury room. Sometimes they have them sit there. I don't know what is preferred, but it's hard when you feel like everyone's talking and you don't get to know what they're talking about. Like, I get it. And there are a lot of sidebars. I wonder how much they can see the lawyers' faces during sidebars. But some courts, you see the jurors excused and they handle it all in a chunk. I wonder if it's easier for them because they can go just sit out of the view of everyone for a minute. But also some jurors get annoyed with having to walk back and forth to the jury room all the time. Is there a good answer? I don't know if there's a good answer. There are things that have to be argued outside the presence of the jury. The court has taken an unexpectedly long Memorial Day weekend with no court Thursday, no court Friday, no court Monday for the federal holiday. So the court said, I will see you all back here on Tuesday. No, the court did not say, I will see you next Tuesday. Emily, would that have been funnier? Yes. The court said next week, except for Thursday, they will be full days. Thursday next week looks like it may be a half day. Here's what I think. Tuesday, Wednesday are full days. I think we might be done with the Commonwealth's case on Thursday. And they are anticipating being done with the Commonwealth's case on Thursday, which gives them a half a day to argue the motion to dismiss that will come at the end of the Commonwealth's case and to talk about scheduling. So I think they might be reserving that half day Thursday for argument if they are moving towards the end of the Commonwealth's case, and I think that they are. So I think Tuesday and Wednesday will be full days. That'll be sort of the end of the Commonwealth's case and maybe a half day in the morning Thursday. And then there's time for them to take care of what they need to do in the afternoon and then get into the defense case on Friday, which means the defense, if they're going to send the jury out over a weekend, will probably bring in witnesses who are not going to be maybe as consequential, or just bring in Proctor first, because it seems like the Commonwealth is not calling Proctor at this point. And so then I think we will get into a full week of the defense case after that, including Dr. Russell, ARCA, the defense experts, et cetera. So I think we are getting to the end of the Commonwealth's case pretty quickly, which indicates to me they're probably not going to call any other civilian witnesses, and we're going to round it out with their accident reconstructionist and maybe a few other scientific witnesses. And I think that's where we're going to be. So can the defense call Proctor? Yes, they can. Can the defense call anyone that's on the Commonwealth's witness list? Yes, they can. The defense witness list includes the Commonwealth witness list. So anyone that the Commonwealth listed, the defense can call. So we are at the end of day 20. And at the end of the Commonwealth's case or the prosecution's case, there will always be a motion. Different jurisdictions have slightly varied names on it, but it will be saying, look, Your Honor, the prosecution has not proved their case and no jury could find the crimes charged here, and they argue for it. And then in almost every case I've ever seen, it gets denied, and then they move forward. So what's happening the rest of the week? Thursday, no court. Friday, no court. Monday, no court. Tuesday, we will be back in court for a full day. Wednesday, a full day. Thursday, we'll see what happens. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.